Tonight, airlifted to safety, the relief and frustration as more Canadians flee wildfires.
It's very hard and tiring and scary.
Stranded for days, their community cut off, some evacuees escape to find hotels at capacity.
And it's really sad to see, our children having to sleep on floors.
The plan to house thousands. A major Ukrainian drone attack on airfields inside Russia. The inside operation, Ukraine says, was a year in the making. The end of an era for Hudson's Bay.
I'm really sad to see it go.
Stores closed their doors and put thousands out of work.
Without us, there would be no HBC.
What happens next to the brand and those big stores?
From CBC News, this is The National with Ian Hennemensing.
Hundreds of residents of communities in northern Manitoba are on the move tonight, escaping raging wildfires by plane, train, even military helicopter. But after a chaotic and stressful few days, many are worried about where they'll go now. Hotels across the region are at capacity, and that means more evacuees are being forced to seek shelter far away from home. Some are even being sent as far south as Niagara Falls. Other evacuees are facing long and difficult drives because highways are closed. There are about 150 wildfires spread across Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, and British Columbia. Almost half are burning out of control. Strong winds and a lack of rain in the forecast mean the situation could get even worse. And as Sam Sampson shows us, it's pushing evacuees to their limits.
All weekend, military helicopters and planes brought stranded Manitobans to safety.
I'm glad I'm here, but I'm very tired. We're all very tired. All we want is a good shower.
Serena Moore escaped Puckatawagan, a remote First Nations community where thousands were stuck for days.
It was very hard, and there's lots of smoke. You couldn't even go out, and staying inside was worse.
I'm happy my family's out.
Some of those airlifted out then got on buses or trains to seek refuge in Winnipeg.
Keeping the family together was our priority, and keeping calm was the second.
As many as 17,000 people have fled their homes in Manitoba, and room is running out. First Nations leaders say many have nowhere to stay in Winnipeg since hotels are booked up. They're urging the province to force hotels to make room for evacuees.
And it's really sad to see, our children having to sleep on floors. People are sitting, waiting in hallways, waiting outside.
Manitoba's premier says about 3,500 evacuees are going to southern Ontario to free up space in Winnipeg.
Oh my God.
Fires raging in Saskatchewan forced more communities to evacuate over the weekend. Timber Bay's fire truck has been out of commission for years, so before fleeing, community members scattered hoses near hydrants to help remaining firefighters.
Wind's going to shift from the east later on this afternoon, so we're better get ready and be vigilant, I guess.
Fires have forced about 4,500 people out of their homes in Alberta. Recent cool weather helped crews, but the province says it's still too dangerous to go home. The smoke from these fires has traveled as far south as Florida, but continue to choke those closest to the flames, with some in northern Manitoba voluntarily leaving their homes just to find clean air to breathe. Sam Sampson, CBC News, Edmonton.
As you saw in Sam's report, evacuees from those remote communities in Manitoba are arriving first in the PAW. And that's where the CBC's Josh Crabb is. Josh, you're at the airport where evacuees are being brought in on military aircraft. Tell us what you've been seeing.
Ian, right behind me, you can see water bombers and a Hercules aircraft here to take evacuees from the PAW to Winnipeg. For the past several days, this airport has been a hub of activity with helicopters and airplanes landing with loads of evacuees. It's mainly been the Royal Canadian Air Force, but other agencies are assisting as well. This is where people from Puckatawagan are landing with nothing but a bag full of clothes and personal items. They've been telling me they're arriving tired, hungry, and stressed after waiting days to be rescued. There's tables of food and drinks for them to grab. Then they have to figure out where to go next. some even going as far as southern Ontario because the province is running out of hotel space. Many are being transported to southern Manitoba by train or bus. There's also a large-scale evacuation of Pimicikamak Cree Nation, northeast of where we are. The armed forces is using Hercules aircraft to move people from that community. Meantime, the city of Flin Flon, which is home to 5,000 people and has also been evacuated, is also continuing the firefight. Local officials have said that no structures have been lost, but this wind isn't helping. Ian.
Thanks, Josh. Let's move now to Saskatchewan and the hamlet of Wildfire, one of the northern communities facing an evacuation order. And that's where Alexander Silberman is tonight. What are you hearing from evacuees?
Ian, I'm hearing a lot of fear and frustration. This road behind me is now closed. At times it was possible to pass through with an escort, but fire has made it too dangerous. Upwards of 8,000 people have now evacuated in Saskatchewan, and they're going through some stressful experiences. There's limited road access in the north, so people are often taking back roads in poor conditions to make it to safety. There's also widespread power outages, impacting gas stations' ability to pump gas, and cell service is down in many areas. And there's fewer and fewer places to stay. Hotels in Prince Albert and Saskatoon are full, and people are being told to drive 5 hours to Regina. And the province is warning without rain, more people could be forced to leave their homes in the coming days. Ian?
Alexander Silberman in Evacuees, Saskatchewan this evening. And as Saskatchewan deals with a state of emergency over those wildfires, tonight Canada's premiers are gathered in Saskatoon, ready to pitch the Prime Minister on big projects meant to strengthen the economy. Marc Carney arriving with a promise to pass legislation that will streamline approvals. JP Tasker sets up what could be a pivotal meeting.
With questions in the air over the future of Canadian energy, Prime Minister Marc Carney says he's serious about getting big things built.
It's a critical time for our country.
Promising Alberta oil patch executives his government will fast-track major infrastructure projects.
The world's certainly more divided and dangerous, and the imperative of making Canada an energy superpower in all respects has never been greater.
According to an internal memo obtained by CBC News, Ottawa is preparing a bill to streamline approvals to start construction faster. Anything from new mines and nuclear plants to ports and roads could be given the green light.
I have said that we want a sovereign Alberta within a united Canada.
The commitment comes as Carney prepares to meet premiers for the first time since the election in Saskatoon on Monday. Danielle Smith has a list of demands, including Ottawa's blessing for a new oil pipeline to Tidewater. Saskatchewan's Scott Moe wants that too.
So I do truly believe there is a path forward, notwithstanding the feeling of alienation that many people in my province and other areas of Canada have felt.
Also on the agenda, breaking down internal trade barriers like limits on the movement of workers between provinces.
Let's get rid of all this regulation and red tape that's prohibiting us from moving forward at a rapid speed, because it all depends on the speed right now.
Moe has now cut a deal with Ontario's Doug Ford to do just that. Carney says the feds will do their part to resolve an issue that's been talked about for decades and free up trade inside Canada by July 1st. JP Tasker, CBC News, Ottawa.
Catherine Cullen, host of The House, is in Saskatoon ahead of that high-stakes meeting. And Catherine, this feels a lot more consequential than most First Ministers' conferences.
Ian, the hopes coming into this meeting are quite high. Saskatchewan's Premier Scott Moe said that when it comes to the economy, this is the largest single opportunity he has seen in his lifetime. And no Premier's wish list is guaranteed. Premiers have told me that they think this isn't a foregone conclusion, that what happens behind closed doors tomorrow is really going to matter. New Brunswick's Premier has even compared this to the Hunger Games. Now, the Premier certainly, yes, they're interested in fast-tracking particular projects. They are also, though, interested in getting federal money for those projects. It's not clear how much of that is on the table. And Alberta Premier Danielle Smith has really upped the pressure in her own case. She has said she wants to see a pipeline to northwestern BC to the coast. It's not clear that BC is on board with such a project. But Smith said if a oil pipeline doesn't go ahead, it sends a bad signal to Albertans about national unity. And we know that she had a private meeting with the Prime Minister here tonight. Now, he also has to think about the concerns of Indigenous leaders. Some have suggested they are worried that their concerns are going to be brushed aside in this fast-tracking process. And so in Saskatoon, Ian, one of the Prime Minister's biggest promises is about to be tested.
Catherine Cullen, thank you. Marc Carney has named a prominent lawyer as his permanent chief of staff. Marc-André Blanchard is currently a senior executive of the company that manages Quebec's public pensions. He spent 4 years as Canada's representative to the UN. Blanchard begins his new role in July, replacing the former cabinet minister Marco Mendicino. Now to a breaking story in the U.S. 6 people are injured tonight after an attack on an event for Israeli hostages in Boulder, Colorado. The FBI calling it a targeted terror attack. The 45-year-old man is in custody after investigators say he used a makeshift flamethrower. The FBI agent in charge says that the man yelled "Free Palestine" during the attack. Katie Simpson joins us now from Washington. And Katie, what do we know about this so far?
It was just before 1:30 p.m. local time on what was described as a beautiful Sunday afternoon when this attack took place. The first 911 calls started coming in for reports of a suspect with a weapon lighting people on fire. Some witnesses have said the suspect was throwing what appeared to be Molotov cocktails, sending people screaming and running for cover. There are multiple victims with burn injuries, and those injuries range from minor to very serious. This happened in an area of Boulder where there's a pedestrian mall, and this afternoon, members of the Jewish community and allies had gathered for a walk to rally and call for hostages in Gaza to be freed. It's something that happens most weekends in this specific location. The FBI and the governor of Colorado have both described this as a terror attack, saying this group was targeted, and that's what some witnesses have said too. One suspect was arrested after witnesses pointed him out to police, and according to a senior White House official, U.S. President Donald Trump has been briefed. There has been a heightened sense of fear among many in the Jewish community. 2 staffers of the Israeli embassy in Washington were murdered while leaving a Jewish museum last month. No terror or hate crime charges have been laid in that case yet, but local investigators say they expect those kinds of charges to come sometime soon.
Katie Simpson in Washington. Thanks, Katie. In Gaza, health officials and witnesses say there's been a deadly shooting attack on civilians waiting to get food. The Red Cross says at least 21 people were killed and more than 100 injured near an aid distribution center. Israel has denied responsibility. Tom Perry takes us through what we know.
Another bloody day in Gaza. The dead and injured rushed to hospital after gunfire erupted near an aid distribution center in Rafah. My younger brother was getting bread for his kids and they killed him, says Arafat Siam. The Red Cross says it treated more than 150 people, at least 21 of whom died. Gaza's health ministry says the number of dead is higher and blames the Israeli military. Israel denies it fired at civilians, then released drone footage, not verified by CBC News, of what it says are masked men firing on civilians, collecting looted aid near Han Yunis to press its case.
Israel is investigating. It is also informing everyone directly and immediately of its findings.
While there are questions around this incident, Gaza remains under intense Israeli bombardment. Israel has repeatedly been urged to show restraint. In a joint statement last month, the leaders of Canada, the UK, and France demanded Israel halt military operations in Gaza and stop construction of settlements in the West Bank. Israel this week responded to that second demand by announcing a plan for 22 new or expanded settlements.
Before our land, this our land, this our land.
Nizar al-Moghrabi is mayor of a Palestinian town bordered by an Israeli settlement. He says settlers seized the spring that supplied water to Palestinian land. People haven't been able to go near it for 2 years, he says, for fear of being shot. Canada, the UK, and France warned of sanctions if Israel ignored their demands. The Palestinian Authority says they must now act.
So we believe sanctions are needed today, not tomorrow actually, and to take actions. Not only good words and statements are not enough, they are good, but they are not enough.
Amid all this, talk of a ceasefire in Gaza has bogged down, Hamas requesting changes to the U.S. brokered deal, a conflict continuing on all fronts. Tom Perry, CBC News, Jerusalem.
On the eve of the second round of peace talks between Ukraine and Russia, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is praising a large-scale drone attack on Russian airfields. Swarms of drones targeted warplanes, and as Briar Store tells us, Ukraine says it's been in the works for over a year.
This was the moment that small drones launched from the back of trucks targeted military airfields across Russia. Gunfire rang out in an attempt to shoot them down. It was an audacious attack that spanned several thousand kilometers. Ukraine says it hit 41 Russian planes, including long-range strategic bombers worth billions of dollars. It's not possible for CBC News to verify those claims. Ukraine's president said the attack had been planned for more than a year and a half and involved 120 drones. They were smuggled into Russia, then concealed in wooden sheds loaded onto trucks, and then launched remotely. Russia's defense ministry confirmed that drones targeted airfields in 5 different regions spread out over the entire country. Officials said several aircraft caught fire in Murmansk and also in Irkutsk, about 4,000 kilometers from the Ukraine border. Experts say if satellite imagery confirms Ukraine's claim that 41 aircraft were hit, it will be significant.
It wouldn't completely stop Russia from launching more missile attacks. But Russia would have to be way more careful, move additional air defenses to rear area bases, etc.
Just hours before Russian airfields came under attack, so did the Ukrainian city of Zaporizhia. Several buildings were damaged and 3 people were injured. It was very loud and scary. While running, I did this to my face, said Ludmila Tinkush. The attacks came as delegations from Russia and Ukraine prepare for a second round of peace talks in Turkey. The first meeting ended after just a few hours, and there's little optimism there will be much more progress this time around. Briar Stewart, CBC News, London.
Back in Canada, after more than 350 years in operation and months of financial wrangling, Hudson's Bay Company closed all of its remaining stores. Lisa Shing now on the iconic company's struggles and its legacy.
It may look like odds and ends, but to many, they're pieces of Canadian history.
A little slice of nostalgia. She may get decorated on special occasions, go in my garden. We're going to have fun with her.
Decades-long Hudson's Bay customers heading in to say goodbye.
It's been my go-to for weddings, funerals, and any other time I need some nice attire, so I'm really sad to see it go.
We actually had the Bay as our wedding registry.
HBC's 96 stores across Canada, all closing Sunday. Its distribution centers shutting in 2 weeks. More than 9,000 employees laid off without severance.
I feel like a jilted lover.
Hazel Harris has worked at a distribution center for the last 7 years.
Without us, there would be no HBC. This is a company that's 355 plus years old. How could you let this happen? It's not right.
North America's oldest company, founded in 1670 with its roots in the fur trade, then a retail giant in the 90s. In recent years, the company struggled financially. In March, it filed for bankruptcy, more than $1 billion in debt, and unable to find a buyer for 6 locations it wanted to save.
You have to continuously reinvent yourself. You have to relate to new and upcoming customers like millennials and Gen Z, and they failed to do that.
In the bankruptcy process, some hope a version of the iconic stripes will live on. The company will ask a court Tuesday to approve the Bay's intellectual property be sold to Canadian Tire. And this billionaire from BC plans to buy the leases to 28 locations, though it's still a loss for longtime customers.
The Bay is, for me, is part of my own being, because it's like I'm just like a kid that grew up with this store.
Grateful for the sales, though grieving the end of an era hundreds of years long. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
There's new research tonight on the benefits of exercise for surviving cancer.
Looking back, I think it's probably one of the best decisions I made.
Why doctors say it could extend lives. Next. Plus, the Vancouver man who was told he'd have to pay for thousands in fraudulent credit card charges.
Well, it was definitely astonishment.
The Go Public investigation. And later, a global culinary tour wraps its Canadian leg.
Since I was 10, my life goal has been to visit every old spaghetti factory in the world.
Meet the iconic chain's biggest fan. We're back in 2. The owners of a BC ostrich farm facing a cull order say they may look at moving the birds to the U.S. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency wants the farm's 400 ostriches killed after cases of avian flu appeared in the flock. But the family wants the feds to consider a proposal by U.S. Health Secretary Robert Kennedy Jr. to save the birds for research rather than culling them. A new study offers dramatic findings about the benefits for cancer patients when they start regular exercise after going through surgery. Christine Birak shows us what the research says about people living longer without disease.
There you go. I'll turn it on.
Can exercise improve cancer survival? Terry Swain Collins took part in a 10-year trial focused on answering that question. Now the results are in.
Looking back, I think it's probably one of the best decisions I made for my own recovery.
I think there'll be tremendous interest in this.
After surgery and chemotherapy for high-risk colon cancer, the disease recurs in about 30% of patients. Researchers recruited nearly 900 patients in 6 countries, including Canada. Half were randomly assigned to receive booklets promoting exercise and healthy eating. The other half took part in a structured exercise program monitored by a physiotherapist or kinesiologist, doing about 45 to 60 minutes of brisk walking or 25 to 30 minutes of jogging 3 or 4 times a week for 3 years. The newly published findings show the exercise group saw clear benefits.
And the really exciting part was they had a marked reduction in the risk of having relapsed cancer, having a new cancer, and their survival was longer as well.
7 years out, 90% of patients in the exercise group were still living, compared to 83% of patients who received the educational materials.
This data now gives us a lot more.
We asked a colorectal surgeon to put a 7% survival difference in perspective for patients.
Chemotherapy in the setting of stage 2 or stage 3 colon cancer might only improve their survival by maybe 15%. So it's half as good as an actual medication.
Not a substitute for meds, but exercise can offer something greater.
I think it gave me a sense of purpose after my cancer to kind of help myself. And the fitness was much better. Like I could see the improvement.
The study's authors are hoping this trial will encourage doctors to prescribe exercise and governments to fund related programs. Adding, a cancer drug can cost $200,000 per patient, while a trainer can be as little as $1,000 a year. Christine Birak, CBC News, Toronto.
A Vancouver man was shocked to find out his bank was holding him responsible for nearly $20,000 in fraudulent credit card charges.
One would like to see more in terms of actual evidence demonstrating that the customer was negligent.
What happened after our Go Public team investigated? Plus, with wildfires raging in the prairies, thousands have been forced to flee their homes.
I literally took a picture of my house the night before, and I didn't know if that was going to be the last time that I was going to see my house again.
The difficult choices they're facing. And the brothers behind the Canadian backpack super brand.
Being famous for something, I think, is a great foundation to build anything you want on top of it.
The founders of Herschel on how it all started and how they're faring in the face of a trade war. The National breaks down the stories shaping our world. Next. When it comes to fraud and credit cards, you might think you're pretty well protected. One Vancouver man thought so too, until someone racked up nearly $20,000 on his Visa card and the bank sent him the bill. Erica Johnson has this Go Public investigation.
Jordan Judge wasn't expecting two charges totaling nearly $20,000 on his Scotiabank Visa card last fall.
Well, it was definitely astonishment.
An almost $18,000 charge to a British university he'd never heard of, more than $1,800 to someone he didn't know.
I wasn't worried at the time because I knew it wasn't my charge and I couldn't be held accountable for it.
Or so he thought. He disputed the charges, but Scotia pinned the blame on him, saying evidence suggests he must have disclosed one-time passwords sent to his phone. Judge did receive one password needed to approve that $18,000 charge, but it said do not share with anyone, so he insists he didn't. This lawyer and consumer advocate says the bank can't just say Judge is liable.
One would like to see more in terms of actual evidence demonstrating that the customer was negligent rather than an assertion.
Credit card customers are supposed to be protected under the Bank Act, which sets the maximum liability for unauthorized charges at $50, unless a customer is grossly negligent with their personal information. A cybersecurity expert read the letter Scotiabank sent to Judge and says they don't provide proof their customer did anything wrong.
The bank has provided no evidence of any logs or any sequence of events that has been timestamped or reviewed in any way.
And while Scotiabank insists that texting a password has a proven track record in mitigating fraudulent activities, POPA disagrees.
It's vulnerable to a number of different types of compromises.
The university behind the $18,000 charge says the bank never contacted them, but after Go Public reached out, it reversed the charge. And after repeated inquiries from Go Public, Scotiabank quietly reimbursed the other charge and all the interest. While things end well for Judge, the cybersecurity expert says in the face of rising fraud, financial institutions need to do a better job of investigating and providing clear evidence before claiming the customer is to blame. Erica Johnson, CBC News, Vancouver.
Our Go Public stories come from you, so if you have a tip for the team to investigate, send an email to gopublic@cbc.ca. Now it's time to dig deeper into the stories shaping our world. A Canadian family startup turned small-town label into a global brand, pushing Herschel's success beyond backpacks.
It was a reminder of that you can make something out of nothing and you can have fun.
We dig into how they got started and their Saskatchewan connection. But first, as swarms of wildfires sweep across the prairies, a concerned resident along the Saskatchewan-Manitoba border describes her journey to safety as the fires put her home and businesses at risk. Dawn Halady and her family are among those who had to make a hasty escape from their homes. In her case, Creighton, Saskatchewan, just minutes away from Flin Flon, Manitoba. And so now you're in Saskatoon. You don't know when you're headed back. You're not exactly sure what's happening back home. What's it been like?
It's been a nightmare that has been reoccurring for 4 days, actually. It's, we're trying to get information as much as we can, but there is really no information to be had. There's really no end in sight right now. The fire is still out of control. We still need resources to come in and help, and we've been given no time frame, so I could be here for a while.
One small, probably very small measure of comfort is that you can see remote cameras from your two businesses, a drive-in as well as a restaurant. I'm not sure if you have cameras in your home as well, but what's that been like to kind of take a look that way?
Yes, thank goodness for technology, because the drive-in movie theater, it is in the middle of the forest in an area that is being affected by this fire. So knowing that it is still standing is definitely a peace of mind. The restaurant is okay. It's right on the edge of Highway 10 as well, which is also being engulfed. It's still standing, so thankfully my livelihood and my two businesses are still there. My home is on the edge of Creighton, where the fire first initially started. So knowing that it is still standing, it's definitely something reassuring, because there's been other people, friends of ours, or my son's coach actually, she lost her home, and it's heartbreaking knowing that people's places are truly at risk right now.
You knew the fire was close. You shared some pictures that you took from your home of just the ominous glow of the fire. When you finally got into your pickup truck, your husband, a town councillor, was staying in town at that point. You and your teenage son were going to head down to Saskatoon. What was that moment like when you locked the door and you headed to the truck?
It was terrifying. I literally took a picture of my house the night before, and I didn't know if that was going to be the last time that I was going to see my house again. Locking that door and driving away, it was so emotional. I'm not an emotional person, and it was tears that literally just started flowing, knowing that everyone was all in a state of panic and we didn't know what to expect. We've never done this before. It's, I mean, obviously a risk living in the north and living in the forest, but you never expect that this is actually going to happen, nor do you know what to expect. Everything is literally rolling minute by minute.
I remember watching the news conference from the Manitoba Premier, Wab Kinew, when he said at around, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 o'clock Saskatchewan time, that people had to leave Flin Flon by midnight. And I thought, well, that's a pretty good time frame. But as you discovered, the traffic was jammed. It was a long, slow ride southward, I guess.
Yes, I was fortunate enough to be at the front of the line, I think. But I have heard stories of people who literally it took them 5 hours to get to the Paw, and the Paw is usually an hour and a half drive away from us. My parents, they went to Nipawin. That took them 9 hours, and Nipawin is actually only 4 hours away. So the convoy line and the escape for everybody was horrific.
You're lucky enough to be at a friend's house tonight to have dinner, so that's a nice break in terms of social contact and getting out of the hotel. But what do you do to fill your time? Like you're a business person who normally, and a parent, obviously normally very busy. What do you do while you're kind of stuck, if I may use that word, in Saskatoon?
Unfortunately, business doesn't stop. So, I mean, I still have employees that I have to check on. They're literally scattered all across the country. I'm trying to figure out what I can do for them, checking in to make sure that they're okay. My husband just got to Saskatoon today. He was left behind for the last couple of days. He's been helping the frontline workers there, as we've got a restaurant, so he's been helping feed them. So it's literally just trying to connect with people. There's vendors that are, requesting payments still. And I'm like, hang tight. This is the situation. And it's just trying to keep the mind busy because unfortunately at this moment, there's not a lot of updates. These fires can roll in so fast. Stuff happens so fast. And it's just a matter of trying to claim whatever information we can as well. My phone doesn't leave my hands. There's people that are messaging and texting and reaching out literally every 2 minutes. And time is going so slow. I've lost so much sense of time. I had to even think about what day it was, but it's still needing to keep the mind busy, to keep distracted from the nightmare that we're living.
And as you say, no telling when you're going to get back and what home is going to, and your businesses are going to look like when you get back. I wish the best for you, obviously, and your family. Dawn, thank you very much for speaking with us.
Thank you.
Coming up, the creators of one of the world's most famous backpacks talk about the brand's prairie roots and managing a global company through Donald Trump's trade war.
Our team is constantly communicating about it, of how do we get ahead of it and what decisions we make next.
My interview with the brothers who founded Herschel. Next. The brotherly dreams inspired by a small Saskatchewan town. We break down how Herschel used brand identity to achieve global reach.
Being famous for something, I think, is a great foundation to build anything you want on top of it.
But those creative ideas are facing challenges, particularly in its biggest market, the U.S. I sat down with the two brothers at Herschel's headquarters here in Vancouver to talk about how it all began, the impact of department stores closing down, and this excerpt begins with their answer on how Herschel is responding to U.S. tariffs.
We're set up really, really well. We're manufactured in a bunch of different countries of origin. We can prioritize which countries are getting favorable trade deals from the U.S. and ship goods mainly from there. It's a distraction right now for all of us. It's a lot. It's, you know, our team is constantly communicating about it, of how do we get ahead of it and what decisions we make next. And you know, we hope there's an end game here where we can all just plan our businesses accordingly and do the fun part of the business of doing fun partnerships and creating an awesome product and telling cool stories.
But just from a business standpoint, I just wonder, does it mean fewer Herschel products will be sold in the United States, or they're going to cost 25% more, or what is the, let's say, the 2025 impact going to be?
We've made the decision not to raise any prices, and that's really a benefit from our diversity of countries around the world. We'll have to make strategic decisions about the future, but you know, our 25 outlook is going to be hold and see and wait and see. I mean, uncertainty, I think, in life is a killer. In business, it's a killer. It's you know, we try with our team here to bring as much certainty to possible in any decision we make, because it's allows us to plan better, execute better all the time. So yeah, I mean, it's a big distraction, and you know, it's a distraction for us and sort of every other brand. That we're not alone in this, and the sooner that we have clarity into what's happening, we can make longer term decisions on what we need to do to act accordingly.
So you have a company that's based in Vancouver, named after a hamlet in Saskatchewan that you have family ties to. What do you hope Herschel means to your customers?
Well, for us, it was this place that both Jamie and I and our other brother Jason got to go to tons as kids. So our grandparents had a house there. Our dad was born and raised in the town, and we used to always load up on our family station wagon and go back to this little town of Herschel. And of course, from a lot of people, it doesn't mean anything. But for us, it meant a whole bunch. We got to adventure around. I think it just constantly, for us, later in our lives, was a reminder of that you can make something out of nothing, and you can have fun and be an adventurer wherever you are in the world. And for us, it was some of our best memories as growing up together. And so
putting that into a brand is, I hope, what the end consumer really sees is really why we ended up wanting to put that name in there. Is it's kind of complete creative freedom to do whatever you want through life.
So you have the name from that small hamlet, but you're based here in Vancouver. And I just wonder what impact on your company and maybe even on your products is there being based in Vancouver?
I mean, we're surrounded by mountains, the Pacific Ocean. We quite often say we have 1 foot in city and 1 foot in nature, and I feel our brand does as well as us as humans living here. The fact it's a very worldly city and very global city.
I think that we can get great talent here. There's the arts, there's culture, there's just a great city to pull amazing staff from.
There are other companies here as well, obviously, like Arc'teryx and Aritzia and Lululemon, but tell me about the community of people you draw on that work on your products.
Yeah, I mean, we've pulled them from everywhere. I think having the aforementioned brands of Aritzia, Lulu, and Arc'teryx here really obviously aids in that. But again, I feel the biggest thing that we can market from Vancouver is Vancouver. And so whether people want to stay here, whether people want to come here, whether people want to move here, I mean, we've got a tremendous asset in this city and this country that people want to be a part of.
So here in Vancouver, you put together your bags, you design them. I mean, what happens inside this room?
This is a prototype room where we would really do all our first protos, and really that is to see size, shape, how it's going to drape, feature sets, what's working, what's not.
How do you know in East Vancouver what fabric or texture or color is going to be interesting to a customer in Finland or France in a year and a half?
The nice thing about us is that obviously most companies working within lifestyle fashion are looking at trend boards and at sites, but for us, I think it's intuition. You have to know your brand, you have to know your consumer, you have to always be looking in the future. We're working with a year and a half to 2 years into the future, with all of our bags as we go to sell. So I think it's intuition, taste level, style, just trying to make sure we're being progressive. And there's also risk in that. But with that risk is where the excitement and the payoff is too.
We prioritized in the early days our goal to be a global brand. And one of the things that maybe was the catalyst for that was both Jamie and I were sales reps for years, and we had territories. And you sort of always knew the opportunity also existed outside your territory, but you had a border around where you were allowed to sell. And I do remember, and Jamie will probably butcher this, but I do remember saying well, when we create a brand, all of Earth is our territory. And I think you said something about it, don't forget about the moon. But we can try to sell products there too. But the reality is,
so there's a fair amount of swagger in that little exchange that you guys had. Yeah.
Well, not a lot of people on the moon. I try to look for an addressable market size that, well, maybe there are people, we just haven't discovered them yet.
Nothing wrong to be first. So.
Are you all around the world?
Country-wise today,
there's 72.
72 countries.
Wow.
Through about.
Not in every country.
Yeah, not in every country.
Not on the moon yet.
That's a lot of countries, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so let's talk a little bit about bricks and mortar stores. Nordstrom's is one of your early champions. The Bay is another retailer that you guys had stores within. They're obviously not doing that anymore. How hard is it for you to find shelf space in Canada given what's going on in retail right now?
I mean, it's dynamic. Those are two businesses that we could have had great relationships with. I think that as much as we're extremely sad to see it go, I think we're equally optimistic about what's yet to come. And Herschel is in Canada is very, very well known. We have high brand awareness, and we have continued loyalty from Canadians. I think the advantage of being sold in 72 countries of the world means we have diversity in revenue, which helps us, take these speed bumps and move on.
A lot of people, when I mention Herschel to them, describe you as a backpack company. You're cool with that one-liner?
I think it's the primary part of our business, but for me, we're so much more than that. But
some brands don't become famous for anything, and being famous for something, I think, is a great foundation to build anything you want on top of it. So if people refer to us as a backpack brand, we're fine with it for sure, because we're famous for that. And again, being famous for something, I think as a brand is really, really important.
All right. Great talking to you. Thank you very much.
Pleasure. Thank you.
One of the nice things about being in their East Vancouver headquarters, you get to see secret projects. When we were in that sewing room, one of the brothers quickly hid a bag under a counter, apparently not out yet. It's company secret. Up next, an old spaghetti factory superfan eats his way through Canada.
Hey, I'm a quarter Italian, so it gives me a little, credibility to say it's authentic, good tasting Italian food.
His delicious journey in our moment. Okay, on the right is Andrew Mancini, a 22-year-old Stanford student, enjoying himself at the old spaghetti factory in Saskatoon, the final stop of the Canadian leg of his worldwide tour. His love of the Italian-American style chain goes beyond borders, and tonight the passion that drove him to eat his way through all the Canadian stops makes our moment.
46 old spaghetti factories, Dad. Since I was 10, my life goal has been to visit every old spaghetti factory in the world. There's officially 62 between the US, Canada, Japan, and after 12 years, was finally able to check off the final Canadian old spaghetti factory in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. I think it's the part of me that likes traveling and kind of able to make this one of those bucket list type things where, I'm able over the years to check it off. The outline of the menu lists all the locations. So I think courtesy of that placemat, 10-year-old me was hooked. I still will order the pasta with marinara sauce. So basically the the most plain dish on the menu, and it really kills a lot of the staff. Hey, I'm a quarter Italian, so it gives me a little, credibility to say it's authentic, good tasting Italian food. Everyone has been saying, is life worth living after I reached the 62nd, the final one. Part of me thinks, I don't know, it's easy. I can find some other chain to latch onto, but really love the, Old Spaghetti Factory, still family owned after 50 years, seem to really have this, strong community that I think that's the restaurant I'll stick with.
So interesting trek to be on with a certain retro appeal. I remember that restaurant from when my boys were in minor hockey. It was kind of one of the stops we would make when we were taking them around to various rinks. There's a Canadian arm of the chain, 15 restaurants, most in Western Canada, Canadian owned, but also most of the restaurants, as you saw there, owned by a different company in the United States. Now you know. Thank you for being with us. You can watch anywhere, anytime on the free CBC News app and subscribe to the National's YouTube channel. I'm Ian Hannamansing in Vancouver. I hope you can join me weeknights at 7 Eastern on CBC News Network. Good night.